Well, it's been a significant day this Thursday with powerful speeches and high-stakes diplomacy dominating the agenda. Now, one of the most notable moments came from Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, who addressed world leaders virtually after being denied a visa to attend in person. Now, he delivered a scathing condemnation of Israel's actions in Gaza and laid out the Palestinian Authority's position on the future of the region. Now, for more on this and the latest from the UNGA floor, we go live now to Arise international correspondent Adefemi Akinsoya, who's been following the developments closely. Adefemi, good to see you tonight on Newsnight. So take us through Mahmoud Abbas's country's address at UNGA, and certainly took some doing for him to appear in the first place, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely, Ngozi, and thank you very much for that thorough introduction there. Absolutely, it took some doing. He appeared virtually, which is something that really is not common, something that hasn't happened before, and he had to do so only after the United Nations voted for its approval. Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian president, was unable to secure a visa from this Trump-led U.S. administration, and because of that, he wasn't able to appear in person, and that really stoked fears about whether or not Palestine would be adequately represented at this year's UN General Assembly, being that when we're looking at international conflicts, it is what is happening in the Middle East, specifically in Gaza, that has dominated a lot of headlines. So that is why it was quite significant that resolution was passed which allowed him to appear virtually. And virtually he did appear earlier on today. He spoke quite strongly and harshly, of course, condemning Israel's actions in Gaza, across the Palestinian territory. It's ongoing to be, of course, an illegal occupation when you're looking at Israel's actions on the territory, but we already knew that he was going to condemn what was happening there. But he also condemned Hamas, which is significant and shows that there is a separation between Palestine and its leadership and the organization of Hamas. So he did condemn Hamas, but also, as expected, condemned Israel and Israel's actions. He then went on to call for more countries to recognize Palestinian statehood. We already know that in the lead up, far more Western and European countries did say that they would be using their own addresses at this year's UNGA to recognize officially Palestinian statehood. That was what we saw with France, with the United Kingdom, with Canada, with Portugal. It is more and more countries throwing their weight behind what we are seeing in Palestine. The atrocities being committed, more than 64,000 people, civilians, have been killed across the Palestinian territory since October 7th, 2023. So we already knew that what he was going to say was focus a lot of attention right where it should be, which is on this humanitarian crisis within Palestine, and calling for far more international support. What is significant is that we do know that in terms of the United States remains a strong ally of Israel and is unlikely at this point to not so much talk to Palestine, but give Palestine what it wants, which is first and foremost recognition. That would be hugely significant for the Palestinian effort if the United States were to ever officially recognize Palestinian statehood. That is something that is just not on the cards today and for the foreseeable future. So that's where we find ourselves here. Mahmoud Abbas was always going to deliver his remarks along these lines, but it is definitely a harsh reminder of the realities of war in the world right now.
Absolutely, and not just that war, different wars in different places. Adefemi, I mean, the last time we spoke, we were looking ahead to VP Shetima's comments. He delivered a strong address, at least in the estimation of quite a number of people. How has that address been received, especially on the issue of Security Council, permanent seat in the Security Council? And of course, he did talk about, climate, change. And of course, he said, look, no one can be safe if we're not all safe.
Absolutely, Ngozi. I do agree that many people that we have spoken to were quite impressed with the Vice President's speech, that said that his delivery was strong, was stable, that really hit all of the markers, that was not too critical of one or complimentary of the other. Definitely did a good job of putting forward Nigeria's case. So if we first break this down and look at what he called for, he definitely talked about, firstly, Nigeria needing to have a seat on this permanent United Nations Security Council. That is something that we already knew he was going to say. It's something that we had looked ahead to. He had said so himself when he spoke to Arise News before his remarks, and that was something that took up very early parts of his speech. He also went on to talk, really, just to tie into the answer that we were just talking about beforehand, which was Nigeria's position on this war in Palestine. He talked about how Nigeria is still a supporter of a two-state solution and understands that the humanitarian crisis, the conflict that we're seeing in the Middle East, is not for the betterment of anyone. So to your point that you just raised there, Ngozi, about him saying that no one is safe until everyone is safe, that is another example of Nigeria wanting to broker peace around the world. He went on to also talk about the environment, as you rightfully put it, to show that this is something that is clearly a priority, not just to him personally, but to President Tinubu and to the entire federal government here, looking at ways in which the federal government can prioritize climate financing. And we are seeing domestically the importance of this. We see flooding ravage through communities across Nigeria. So it just underscores that what is happening on the international stage is something that is never too far away from Nigeria's priorities.
Adefemi Akinsoya, Rise international correspondent for us there at UNGA 80 in New York. Thank you very much, as always.